So I just want to apologise. I think I've been having a one-way conversation for about 5 minutes. So I hugely want to apologise for that. My friend Katie is here. We've been having a lovely chat, but I don't think we've been putting it out to you guys. So let's give this another go. I am joined in the studio by my friend Katie. Would you like to say hello?
Hello, my name's Katie. Nice to meet you all.
Oh, fantastic. I'm hearing you in my headphones as well as just in the studio. So this is brilliant. So like I said, we're going to be talking about what it's like to move to Spain and live here. So we both moved here I moved around 5 years ago. Katie moved here around 4 years ago. And I met her a few months after she came here. So you're saying that you've lived in a couple of different places in Spain, and where you are now, you're feeling like this is really where you're going to be settled for a bit longer.
Exactly. At the moment, I live in Estepona. It's a beautiful town. I live in a really lovely place of the world, and I've had to chop and change houses quite a lot. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of sort of September to June rentals only, so I'm quite happy I've now found a place I can stay all year round. What about you, Anna?
I'm in Manilva, so just down the road from you, and I've lived in different parts of Malaga, so inland, Torremolinos, and now I think I'm definitely settled a lot more on the coast. I've got the family here, kid in school, and you've bought your house, so you're a homeowner in Spain.
Exactly. It's quite exciting and nerve-wracking, but the process once I decided upon the property was relatively quite smooth. I think it helped that my Spanish was a pretty good level, but I've been there for about 2 years there now, and I'm really happy. And both of us are near the mountains, we're near the sea, we're near the nightlife. On the odd occasion we go out.
On the odd occasion. I think you definitely go out a bit more than I do. So you said it wasn't too much of a grueling process to get the house. Why were you so sure that you wanted to buy in Spain? I mean, that's a commitment, because you're only young, Katie.
Yes, it was a big decision, but I think what I was finding difficulty with was finding a property from September to September. A lot of these properties want to rent them out during the summer months and get lots of big profit, and I just felt like I wasn't getting enough value for my money, and I thought I was in a position where I could put money down on a house, and now I've got the opportunity to live somewhere which is nice. And during COVID, unfortunately, I lived in a very sort of hot, small space with very little outdoor space, so that made me crave the outdoors and the sunshine.
Yeah, I remember speaking to you during that time. You really were in sort of a small high floor flat in Estepona with no outdoor space at all, and I was lucky enough that I had a bit of a garden where I was, and I felt for you and the guys living in towns and cities during COVID. It was pretty brutal here, wasn't it?
Exactly. Comparatively to my neighbours, I was doing quite okay, because there were other neighbours nearby living in families of 4 in a similar sized property to me. But for me, I needed the sunshine, I needed people, I needed English conversation. But I learned a lot of Spanish, and I learned a lot from it. Did you have quite a good time during lockdown, Anna?
Yeah, it wasn't a bad time for me, actually. Like I said, I had a bit of outdoor space that I could be in. My husband and I both had work, so we didn't lose out too much financially, so we didn't have that sort of stress. We also didn't have a child at that time, so I think people who had to look after kids in an indoor space, that's where it was really, really, really difficult. So when you were buying your house, did you just think, right, this is where I want to be, so I'm staying? Or did you sort of look at the English market, the housing market there as well, and make any comparisons?
So it was quite a quick decision for me, to be honest. Initially, I looked at another property, which was the other side of Estepona, and I actually put down an offer and it was accepted, but unfortunately it fell through. So I did say it was quite a smooth process, but in the end, I was waiting around about 4 or 5 months for that first property to fall through. But when I saw the second property, I knew the first property wasn't quite right, and it was exactly what I wanted, and it had a pool and it had outdoor space. And I'm just really happy. It's not in the centre of town, but it works just well for me because I'm able to cycle or go on my electric scooter into town, and Anna and I often like going on our bikes different places as well, so that's fantastic location for us all to gather if we need to in the future.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's funny how that often works out with things like house buying or whatever in life. It's sometimes you think that you're going to go in a certain way, and then a curveball comes along and it turns out actually better than what you expected. But I think the house is kind of really what's made you feel like you're staying? You're here for good now, really, for the long term. What was it that brought you here in the first place?
So, a variety of reasons, really. I was in the UK and I was in the south of England, which is a very lovely, beautiful place to be. But I was looking for a bit more of an untraditional job in a bit more of an exciting place in the world. And I've always had the travel bug within me. And I thought, let's have a go of moving somewhere abroad. So I went to a careers festival in London. I met lots of different schools and I had my eye on a particular school close to where I live, and I got the job. And what about you, Anna? So why did you decide to come here? Was it to do with the fact you love travel as well?
No, not so much. It was to do with I loved a man's face. I met a man over here when I was on holiday and I really liked his face, and we ended up getting married, and it worked out. I now live here. We have a family together. It was quite an impulsive decision, but one that has worked out for me. But I think employment-wise, things have been a little bit more difficult for me because I went about it in a different way. Like, I didn't come here already with a job planned. I came here, didn't speak any Spanish, and then I had to work out how to get work. So I think in the next little section of talk, I want to hear more about your job and the job of some of your friends that you speak with. And I'm going to talk to you a bit about what it's like being self-employed and looking for work as well. And that's definitely been an adventure. And also, I'd like to go a little bit more into social life and love life, what it's like exploring love life here in Spain. So we're going to take a short break and then we're going to come to those topics just after. I'm Anna Glavinsky. You're listening to The Friday Conversation and I'm joined by Katie.
TRE, Talk Radio Europe.
The Friday Conversation, presented by Anna Glavinsky.
Anna Glavinsky, that's me. You're listening to Talk Radio Europe, and I'm joined in the studio by Katie this afternoon, and we're talking about what brought us to Spain and what it's like living here and the differences that we've noticed, the pros and the cons compared with the UK. Katie, you're a school teacher, you're a math teacher, and you work at one of the international schools. Is your experience of working here in Spain very different to working in the UK?
Yes, it is very different in lots of ways, but the differences are generally very positive. I'm surrounded by quite a lot of creative types, people who've travelled the world, and I feel really inspired to be in this kind of environment. And obviously we have different kind of school trips, so we go to the water park and different things like that. I've had lots of opportunities, such as going on a variety of school trips and musical performances that I perhaps wouldn't have had in the UK in the same sort of way. And also we're in an environment where the teaching style is not like the traditional teaching style of a state school in the UK, so I feel really privileged. I've been able to grow as a teacher and learn more about myself in my profession.
Yeah, I remember you saying that at times you felt quite stressed out and stifled almost in your job back in the UK as a teacher, and it almost seems to be opposite here. You have an opportunity to flourish.
Exactly. I really love being able to flourish, and all the teachers in my workplace are all kind of different characters, and we all mesh really well together, and I feel really proud of where I work and how far I've come in my profession. What about you? So you were saying about your jobs, and it was quite difficult sort of to get your foot in the door when you first came to Spain. So what helped change that?
Yeah, it was, because like I say, you had your job offer and that's almost what made you come to Spain. You thought, well, why not? I'll go with that. Whereas I came here without a job, without really too much of a plan. And I had a bit of bad luck, actually. I did have a contract with some work that was going to be having me go back and forth between Spain for a while, and then that company went bankrupt just as I was driving my car down. Yeah, I was driving down here with all my possessions in my car, and then I saw on Twitter, I didn't even receive the news myself first, that the company had gone bankrupt. So I found myself in quite a precarious position, and my job is talking, and I don't speak, I do now, but I didn't speak any Spanish. I didn't speak a word of Spanish. I didn't even know. I used to say grazie.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't even know.
So you arrived to Spain with no Spanish at all?
Yeah, no Spanish, no job. Like I said, it was quite impulsive. It's amazing what you do when you fall in love with someone. It is a bit ridiculous. So, like I say, I have learnt Spanish, and we speak Spanish at home because my husband is Chilean and so he's a Spanish speaker.
Of course.
and I'd say I'm nearly fluent. I'm probably 85% there. But that extra little percentage, it still isn't enough for me to feel like I could pitch myself in for jobs as someone who speaks for a living in a Spanish company or in a Spanish-speaking context. Imagine I was interviewing someone, a politician or something, and I say, "Oh, excuse me, what does that word mean?" It just I couldn't. So I've had to find work, a lot of online work,
of course.
And I fly back to the UK quite regularly as well. And, I'm also really delighted to be doing stuff here at Talk Radio Europe where they speak English. That's been really imperative for me to find jobs that speak English.
And something we've talked about quite a bit is, obviously you're much more fluent than me in Spanish, and I'm getting there. But I think the biggest hurdle for both you and I is understanding the humour, because that's sort of the last thing you understand in a language. And you and I, we both like to talk to people, we both like to explain our thoughts, we both like to be in groups of people, and it can sometimes be quite jarring and difficult when we can't quite understand why that joke was particularly funny. And it can be quite frustrating, can't it, Anna?
Or the opposite is when you tell a joke and then everyone, the Spanish people just end up looking at me like, "Oh, that's nice." And I'm like, no, it's not nice. It's funny. Laugh. This is the moment when you're supposed to laugh.
Exactly.
But I'm not sure if that's just a language thing or if there's also a culture thing, because for sure I've got groups of friends, Spanish friends, I've got groups of British friends, and then I've got groups of sort of international, shall we say, friends. And culture differences are notable,
yes.
I found.
I do think humour hits differently depending on where you're from. So I was speaking to my friend who has lived in the UK for many years, and she is Spanish. And she was explaining to me the differences between what she appreciates about British humour versus Spanish humour. And she was saying the humour around here is very specific to very specific vocabulary that we would never understand probably for a number of years. So I suppose that's a big hurdle we have to get used to.
Yeah, I was speaking to a Spanish friend of mine where I was telling a joke, but I kept a really straight face, because that is the British dry humour, isn't it? That's almost like the quintessential British way of telling a joke. And I was explaining this to him, and he was like, "Well, I don't get it." And I was like, "Yeah, because if I laughed, it wouldn't be funny. Like, it's funny because I'm not laughing." And he just looked at me as if I was completely mad, and he was just like, "Well, what's the point in telling a joke then? Because the point of a joke is that you're meant to laugh." And I was like, "No, it's funnier if you don't laugh." But yeah, we did.
I suppose the reason you came to Spain as well, going back to that, you said about coming to Spain for love, and I came to Spain for a job, whereas I've sort of done quite well with my job. I've put my foot in the door quite quickly and easily, whereas I suppose my love life, on the other hand, has been a bit more of a challenge. So we've had different successes and failures. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't call your love life a failure, Katie. It's very exciting. I love hearing about your love life. But I do think, again, you're talking about cultural differences, there's language differences, but even a layer below that, there's cultural differences that can affect your love life. I'm married to someone who speaks Spanish. He's Chilean, so he's got sort of Hispanic, should I say, ways. I think his culture is a lot more similar to Spanish than it is to British, and we have had some arguments about things that I would never have predicted, because we just have a different outlook on things so often. What about you, as a single person looking for love in Andalusia?
I suppose it's quite challenging initially because we went straight into lockdown, and obviously we weren't allowed to visit anyone legally, and then the language barrier is difficult because it takes a couple of years to get to a level of fluency when you can go out with people and speak just in Spanish. But I'm getting there, but there are lots of people are transient in this area as well. They do move away and they come back. I've had lots of friends leave and come back, and sometimes you don't know the longevity of the people around you, and people don't often trust that you're going to be in the area for that long. I don't know whether you agree with those kind of thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I've had friends, you really start to feel a connection with them, and then they go back to the UK or to a different country. And people do say that this area is very transient. That word is used a lot. Do you think, when you're looking when you're dating, are you looking more into the expat community but knowing there's a risk of someone who's not likely to stay, or would you more likely look for someone who is Spanish, who's been here their whole lives and they're likely to stay here their whole lives?
I don't think I've got a particularly strong preference, to be honest. I think the main thing I would like is someone who's got some sense of adventure. So I suppose with the expats, you're more likely to find that sense of adventure because they've perhaps moved around the world a couple of times, but you're also able to find that in Spaniards as well. But I'm trying to battle through those language difficulties, and when you're trying to talk about more subtle things in conversation, that can not go through properly. So the longer I've been here, the easier my language is becoming in terms of explaining myself properly in a different language.
I feel like this is turning into a bit of a Lonely Hearts Club, and you're lonely, but I'm like, this is what Katie is looking for. If anyone would like to get in touch, the number is +3465 99 67 95.
Although we're on the radio and they can't see us, Anna.
She's a very, very lovely, sporty young lady. Listen, we're going to be talking a little bit about the heat wave just after this, and how we're coping with that. I'm Anna Glavinsky. You're listening to Talk Radio Europe.
TRE.
Talk Radio Europe. The Friday Conversation with Anna Glavinsky.
Hello, I'm Anna Glavinsky. You're listening to The Friday Conversation, and I'm joined by Katie in the studio today, and we're discussing the pros and the cons, the ups and downs, and the differences between living in Spain and living in the UK. We've discussed our work, we've discussed our love life. It's got juicy, that's for sure. Hey Katie, how you doing?
All right, Anna, how are you doing?
Just the same as I was a couple of minutes ago. So it was pretty exciting to discuss your love life there. Can I just ask, do you use apps like Tinder, or do you use any Spanish dating sites, or do you just try and go out in bars and meet people in real life?
Well, I do like using things like Tinder sometimes, but most of the time it's like finding a needle in the haystack. So I would prefer to go out and meet someone real life in the flesh. But that can also be quite difficult because in this modern day of dating, I sound like I'm very old, but I'm not particularly old. I feel like a lot of people have got their own things they're thinking about. They're often on their phone, so it's sometimes quite hard to sort of integrate into a group of people and introduce yourself, but I'm getting there. Yeah. I'm joining different clubs, and I'm joining the gym and things like that, so it's quite exciting.
Well, that does bring me on to my next topic, actually, with things to do. Like, yes. Would you find that your things to do life, your hobbies or your social life, you're going out, is different to how it was when you were living in the UK?
Absolutely, and I don't know if you would agree more or less than me, but I feel like a lot of the hobbies I used to do in the UK were sort of indoor classes and things like that, but while we live in Spain, I'm jumping off waterfalls, going on my bike, going on my electric scooter, seeing the sunsets, going swimming in the sea. Anna and I went in the sea the other day.
Oh, that was nice, wasn't it? Yes. It was night time, so we went for a night swim.
Absolutely. Cool. And I just feel much more enriched with my hobbies in Spain, mainly because of the climate and the fact that the sun doesn't set till so much later in the day, so you've got that many hours after work to enjoy yourself, see friends and swim the sea like we did at about 11 o'clock the other day.
Yeah, I mean, it's summer at the moment, so we really are hamming up those summer activities. And I mean, summer here lasts a long time as well. It's a big chunk of the year. What about in terms of like concerts or festivals or going out partying, nights out? Is that different?
Yes, so I find that probably one of the things I miss most about the UK, and I think COVID's not helped, but I feel like things that I miss the most about the UK are sort of musical theatre and British nights out with British music. But we live in Spain, so I'm adapting to the Spanish culture, the Spanish music, but sometimes you just crave that little piece of home, whether that be custard or going to pubs or going to a musical. So I'm not sure about you, whether you miss nights out or whether your life is adjusting a little bit and that's not so much what you need anymore.
I don't know if I necessarily miss nights out. I think because since having a family, my life has changed anyway. You know, I'm not so much craving going out, but when I do, I do think I miss sort of the youthfulness, I suppose, of London, because that's specifically where I came from, which is a very busy, bustling, creative place. And sometimes on a night out here, it's late, it starts late, it finishes late, which is something that I've had to get used to. But I sometimes find it doesn't quite get that buzz, or I'm not necessarily going to meet people of our age on a night out and things like that.
But perhaps that's because we're a little bit older and we're not in our late teens and our early 20s, and perhaps that's why we don't see the youthfulness of the night out so much.
Where do the late teens and early 20s go out partying?
I'm not sure, because I'm not in that age category anymore. I think a lot of them go out in Marbella, but I often don't want to be out in that kind of area because I'm a teacher, so that's not ideal. And the sort of things I miss is when I'm on a night out, and like I was saying about the humour of Spanish, I don't really understand the Spanish music because I can try and listen to the lyrics, but I'm not going to understand them. I might understand single words, but they're not going to mean as much to me as the sort of music I danced to when I was in school or when I was in university. So I sort of crave that nostalgia of when I was growing up, to be honest.
I think, well, I know this actually from working in radio, people will always get hooked on the music they listen to as teenagers. Like, that is the music that connects with people in their hearts most deeply. Like,
yes.
It's a proven fact, and whether you like it or not, I suppose if you're going on a night out and you're listening to music which is you've never heard before in your life, you're not going to be like, yeah, this is a tune, and this makes you want to get up and hit the dance floor.
Exactly. The other night out I went on, there was a mix of music. I'd say 80% Spanish, 20% British American. And for the 20% of the British American song, I was really dancing, really going for it, really excited. And no one else in the club really was dancing apart from me. But because I was one of the only British people there, but I was loving life, and I was really happy for the mix of music they provided that night.
Yeah. Although what I do really like is the free concerts that towns put on everywhere all the time through the summer. It's just like every weekend you could be going out to an open air music festival for free pretty much every weekend.
Of course, and Manilva have a Pride event about 5 times a year, which we often go to.
Yeah, it really is. I really love that. There's a lot of effort into putting things on in the evening, and something I am adjusting to, and I'm nearly there, but it was quite a shock to the system, is just how late everything is. My kid, who's 7, has been going to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning this summer because we can't even go out the house and find stuff to do until 10 p.m.
Yes, it is a strange thing to adjust to, but I'm getting there. In the middle of the day, sort of around 2 to 4 p.m, we have our heat wave, and it's really hot, so I'm really enjoying my siestas at the moment when I can get them, and then I can sort of power on to the night because I'm not really working too much at the moment during my summer holidays.
I'm really enjoying this aircon studio, that's for sure. Right, I'm going to go to a short break, and then we're going to carry on talking about just how hot it is and how we're coping.
Talk Radio Europe.
This is Talk Radio Europe. The Friday Conversation with Anna Glavinsky.
So how are you coping with this heat? I find that I have to make so many adjustments, whether it's to my timetable, to products that I use, to how I adapt the house. I really do find this heat hard. I'm Anna Glavinsky. You're listening to Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. And I'm joined in the studio by my mate, Katie.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. We're getting involved in the Friday Conversation. And so how are you, just in general, coping with this heat?
I think I do a few odd things and a few normal things, to be honest, which is probably the summary of my life. So I think the strangest thing I do is I put a hot water bottle in the freezer, and then I take that out and I cuddle it when I go to sleep. So rather than having a teddy bear, I have a cold water bottle.
I've not thought of that, but it's actually a really sensible idea.
Yes.
How long does it last?
I'm not quite sure. But initially,
you're asleep.
Yeah, I'm asleep. But initially, it's very, very cold, and then obviously after a few hours, it's more manageable. But you should wrap it around something so it doesn't give you ice burns. But I think things like ice lollies, fans, and I've got Alexa triggered plugs in my house. So I might be sitting in my living room. I might be feeling a little bit too hot, but I can't quite be bothered to walk the 3 meters across my living room. So I can just say to the Alexa, turn on the fan, and she'll wake up the fan and she'll turn it on. So some days I am fine with the heat wave, and other days I think, gosh, I can't be bothered to move. I am just going to stay stationed on this sofa most of the day and just pop in and out of the pool all day long. I'm not sure about what your tactics are.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing how much it saps my energy and my mood and my motivation for doing things. So I like doing stuff, as you know, and so do you. And sometimes I feel like, I'm so tired. And then I remember it's because it's hot.
Yes.
And I don't actually switch the aircon on in my house. house. I think it's very expensive. And although I was speaking to my friend the other day who said that she switched on the aircon last summer and it didn't make a huge difference to her energy bills. So I've actually just been to the Chino and I've bought 2 fans, like stand-up fans to put next to our beds at night time. And there's a bit of a debate about whether that is actually more or less cost effective. So maybe I've just gone and done something really stupid. I've spent like 50 quid on fans and then I have to plug them in and use the electricity of using them as well. So I've maybe made myself a loss.
Yes, that's very interesting. And I think we're both quite lucky because we're not in really small flats. We can have sort of airflow through the house as well.
Yeah, but when that air is hot... so I'll have the doors open at both ends of the house so I get a draft coming through and I feel like I'm getting blasted from the oven.
Yes.
So in the end, I've ended up turning my house into a bit of a tin box. I close everything. I close the shutters down. I close the doors. I don't want any of that air or sunlight coming in.
Of course, when I first moved here, I couldn't believe why everyone had all their shutters down. I thought that's very antisocial and cave-like inside the house.
It's a bit depressing.
And then this year... I've constantly got my shutters down because I do think it just does keep the house a little bit cooler, which I'm really lucky.
Yeah, and less bright as well. You know, I think you look at housing styles, and I think it's very British to love light, love big glass windows, open
fresh
spaces, fresh air, exactly. Whereas now I'm craving a cave.
Exactly, and I think we've got to think about other people who are perhaps older than us going through things such as the menopause. I think I've got a few colleagues who are going through that and I think, gosh, that must be that much more difficult in the heat, and things like portable fans and making sure you protect your car properly and lots of ice lollies. And I'm just lucky at the moment I'm not working during the summer, so I don't actually have to be anywhere at any set time. So when I'm in work, that can be a bit more challenging because I'm in a hotter environment and I've got to keep going regardless of how hot I am and how flustered I might be feeling during those summer months.
Yeah, I mean, it is no joke really, actually. The heat waves can be deadly. When I was preparing for this show, I was reading some headlines today and it was talking about the sheer numbers of people that have died and are predicted to die because of the heat, directly because of that. It's in territory of being national disaster, really.
And it's been on British press quite a lot recently about how hot Spain is getting and other local countries. And I think not so much where we are in the south at the moment, but in the middle of Spain, I can imagine in places like Seville, it can be terribly hot without the water and places to cool off as rapid as we can around here.
And I mean, that is, if I'm going to go out in the day, I will be looking for shade and water. And actually, this is something we've spoken about. Obviously, the beaches here in the Costa del Sol are extremely popular. Tourists flock here and from all over the world to enjoy the beaches. But on a day like today, I would not be on a beach for love nor money. I can't bear it. You get blisters on your feet because the sand is so hot. Then you get sand stuck in your sun cream. You have to put sun cream on all the time. You go in the sea and then you come out of the sea, then you have to dry off and then put the sun cream back on. It's hard work. The beach is hard work.
Yes, I think we haven't quite adapted to Spanish culture on a beach, which is bringing a sun umbrella and bringing a massive picnic and cool boxes. I think you and I, Anna, can be a little bit forgetful in having to remember a sun umbrella and a massive picnic and then put up with the absolute pure heat and the sand and the salty water. We sound a bit spoilt, really, but I think we're much more pool girls in the summer, to be honest.
Yeah, the pool or a nice river with some shade, some cool running water.
Of course.
That does it for me.
We've got some nice local waterfalls around us, and they're very special places with lots of shade, natural environment, running waterfalls. So I think we're very lucky with a variety of
and places that I can bring the dogs as well. You can't bring the dogs to a hot beach in the summer.
No. Not
only would everyone get really mad at me, but it wouldn't be fair on the dogs either. And what about mosquitoes? How are you dealing with them? Because I've actually just got some mosquito nets, and they don't normally go for me. I obviously don't have sweet enough blood, but they always go for my husband, and he's like my protector. If I'm next to him, I know that I'm not going to get bit, but he's going mad about it, and that's why we've ended up getting mosquito nets over the beds.
So we've talked about this before. I feel like if you're in a particular building, they'll go for one person person. So if there's one person in the building, they'll go for that person. But if there's 3, they'll probably only pick one of the 3 people. And I've read it is something to do with blood type, and they never go for me. And this year they haven't gone for me at all, even though I live on my own. So I've been very, very lucky. But I have had a bit of a problem with the mosquitoes getting into my kitchen, and then sort of dealing with insects and things like ants in the kitchen. And I think I just need to increase my cleanliness, to be honest. But it can be a bit of a frustration, which you wouldn't have to deal with in the UK so much.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed of insects and bugs and creepy crawlies are things that you have to either try and keep on top of more than I ever had to in the UK, or accept that you might have some ants, crawling along your hallway floor for a little while. And I think, sand and ants, they're things that I can deal with.
Yes.
Cockroaches, maybe not so much.
I don't mind cockroach.
Oh, really?
I just find them okay. I just sort of pick them up, make sure they put them on so that they're facing the right way, and then off they go outside.
You actually touch cockroaches?
Yes, because sometimes they're sort of in a half alive, half dead state. So I pick them up by their legs, turn them over, and let them go out the house.
Wow, now that is something that I'm not sure I've ever met anyone who picks up and makes cockroach pets before.
They don't stay with me, but I sort of wish them on their way. And I like the geckos as well. They really make me happy.
Yeah, yes. I like seeing. And what are they called? The ones that make the noise, the cicada. The word's just escaping me now, but the ones in the trees that go when it's really, really hot. It's like, to me, that's like the sound of summer.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. I don't know what the word is in English or Spanish, so I can help you there finding the word.
And I was also reading a story earlier on about black flies. So there's been a warning in Spain that black flies are predicted to invade the nation, and these are biting flies, so they don't sting. Gosh. They've got saw-like jaws, and they cut into your skin, and they take chunks out of your skin. So there's actually been a national warning about keeping an eye out for these flies. And they come out in daytime as well.
Okay, so we need to just be on a red alert for these flies wherever we go.
Basically, yeah. And be hygienic. You ought to clean out your drains and your jeans. I didn't mean to say jeans, but you should probably clean out your jeans as well. And all things like that. So,
and storing the food properly. We've talked about putting food in Tupperware so that the little insects don't get in there and things like that.
Yeah, and keeping your food in the fridge as well. So I've got, as you know, I've got a slow cooker, and I've got to so quickly, once the food's actually cooked from the slow cooker, remember to get it into the fridge straight away, because sometimes I cook it through the night, and then when I get up in the morning, I must make sure it goes into the fridge, because if I leave that out until even just lunchtime, it quite often goes off within a few hours.
Yes, so it's good we've learned all these sort of tips along the way about looking after ourselves and being proper adults, really.
Being proper adults, proper grown-ups, and putting on sun cream as well.
Yes.
But it ends up being costly, doesn't it? And there's so much money on sun cream.
Exactly. Yesterday I went on a walk and I found a sun cream bottle on the floor, and it was in the middle of nowhere. I intercepted it. I thought, that's a little gift for me for going on this walk.
Oh, so you got yourself you got a free sun cream?
Yes, I felt a bit guilty, but it was in a very remote location where I thought someone's not really going to return back for this sun cream, so I just nabbed it for myself. So
this could be seen as litter picking or thieving, depending.
Yes, depending on what angle you look at it. So I'm not quite sure what angle you look at it.
I've actually been looking for beach cleanup groups.
Oh yes,
actually,
I saw
recently.
You posted about that.
Yeah, I posted it in one of the local Manilva coffee chats. It's a really big group near where we live on Facebook. It's like the community is really involved in that group, and my kid he's really into nature, ecology. He's like fascinated by bugs and fish, and he hates litter. He hates litter bugs. And he was watching something on YouTube, I think, about some kids in a different country that join these groups, and they do litter picks. They do beach cleans. Wow. They go to the woods and do litter picks, and they learn about the creatures, and they learn about looking after the environment and things like that. I thought it was lovely, and he was asking me, like, can I do one? And I said, I don't even know if they're available around here. So actually, if anyone listening to this can recommend somewhere, you can get in touch, because I would love to know where we can go for some beach cleans.
And I think, Anna, you've also got to bear in mind, you've probably acted as an inspiration to your kid for doing that, because whenever I've been with you, you've always encouraged us to pick up litter. So if we're in a local waterfall, so hats off to you for sort of showing him the way of being eco-friendly and saving our environment, because it's disgusting when people put litter in such a natural and beautiful environment. And I actually might have a contact for you who used to live in this area, who used to organise big beach cleanups. So I'll contact him and I'll ask him. He'll know different people with regards to that.
Oh, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yes.
Because, I hate litter. We're surrounded by some of the most beautiful and epic scenery you could possibly imagine. And then you'll see people that have just left a big pile of beer cans from where they were partying the night before.
It's horrible.
I can't stand it. It is, of course, Friday. I hope that you've been enjoying this show. I'm Anna Glavinsky, sitting in for Alan today on the Friday Conversation. I've been having a wonderful chat with my mate, Katie.
Hello again.
Hello. So we're just going to be wrapping up the show. It's been fantastic speaking to you, Katie. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been my first time on radio, so it's been a great time.
It's just been like having a chat, really, isn't it?
Yes.
But I guess that is what the Friday Conversation is all about. Have you learned anything today?
I've learned that talking on radio is not as scary as what I first anticipated, and perhaps would like to do it again in the future. Who knows? Well,
you are a teacher, so you do have that ability to stand up and talk and give presentations, so I wouldn't put it past you, Katie.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, like I say, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure having you here. I'm really looking forward to my weekend. I'm off to Malaga. Can't wait. And I hope that whatever you're doing, you've got some great things planned. It's going to be getting hotter in pretty much everywhere in Andalusia over the weekend again. So another bit of a heat rise. So make sure you look after yourselves and, like I say, do something fun. Next up, we've got Giles, the wonderful, friendly, sociable Giles with GB, not GQ. So he'll be seeing you off into your weekend. Make sure you stay tuned here on Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain. I'm Anna Glavinsky. Thank you so much for listening.